CBS News Chief White House correspondent Major Garrett is in Washington, where Donald Trump will meet with Republican leaders on Thursday. Major, ahead of that visit, Trump is still refusing to say definitively whether Paul Ryan will stay on as convention chair, and Ryan says he'll do whatever Trump wants with respect to the convention. So what do you make of that?
Well, it's a recognition of the obvious, not necessarily obvious to people who are unfamiliar with the methodology of convention chairmanship, but the fact of the matter is it's not anything for Paul Ryan to take or give away. Paul Ryan is not the convention chairman until the underlying committee that meets before the convention decides to it. It's called the Permanent Organization Committee, and that committee, like others, will do what it wants to do. Now, historically and by tradition, the House Speaker is the chairman of the Republican National Convention, but that's only by tradition. And it's going to be Donald Trump's show. And the delegates who form that Permanent Organization Committee are going to decide who the chairman is. If Paul Ryan wants out, and there is some suggestion he might want out, just to not have to deal with any of this drama, he can find a way to get out because Trump will push him out. Or if Trump wants him to be the chairman, Trump will do that. But this is not something for Paul Ryan to give back over to Donald Trump. What it is, though, is a symbolic bargaining chip between the two of them, and it carries some degree of weight in their relationship with each other. How much does Paul Ryan value being the chairman? How much does Donald Trump value taking it away from it or using against him in some other negotiation? So what you really have here is something that is not of that much present value, but it's taken on a symbolic value, as so many other things have, because this party is divided. Nobody is exactly sure where the Speaker is going to land or where rank-and-file House Republicans are going to land in relationship to Trump. So everything is negotiable and everything takes on a larger symbolic importance until unity or something approximating unity is achieved.
Well, speaking of negotiating, Trump is heading to Capitol Hill on Thursday. We know he's going to speak with Paul Ryan. He's going to meet with Mitch McConnell. Can you give us any more insight into this meeting? Who else is he going to see? What do you think they're going to discuss? Sure.
Let's go over some of the logistics. First and foremost, none of this will happen in Congress itself, the government buildings of Congress. Why? Because it's all purely political. So part of the House meetings will occur in the Republican National Committee headquarters, a block away from Capitol Hill. That's where Speaker Ryan and Reince Priebus, the RNC chairman, and Trump will sit down for their first meeting. Then Trump will meet with the remainder of the House Republican leadership, House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, House Majority Whip Steve Scalise of Louisiana, and the conference chair Kathy McMorris Rodgers of Washington. Then he will cross over Capitol Hill to the other side, the political side, where the Republican Senatorial Committee has its headquarters. Again, a political building where politics goes on, not legislating. And that's where he'll meet with the Senate Republican leadership, Mitch McConnell, and the lot. And then Trump will probably get out of town. His aides will remain, have another meeting with other House lawmakers, and all this is part of an awkward relationship measuring process. So House and Senate Republicans can take their measure of Trump in person and then decide how closely or not so closely they'll walk with him as they head toward November.
And Major, I got to ask you about the news that's sort of big today, those new general election swing state polls that show a very, very close race. Hillary Clinton leads Donald Trump by 1 point in Florida. She trails Trump by 4 points in Ohio and leads him by 1 point in Pennsylvania. Do these numbers come as a surprise?
They do come as a bit of a surprise to me in the sense that they're running so closely together. One other thing I think is worth pointing out, there's a lot to talk about in these polls, but one thing in the context of this ongoing Democratic contest, there's good news for Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders runs ahead of Hillary Clinton versus Trump by 4 points in 2 of those states and by 1 point in another. So that continues to feed Bernie's fire for why he belongs in this race, because he can say, look, in 3 very important swing states, I'm doing better against Trump than Hillary Clinton. Not by wide margins, but by enough to make him relevant in the ongoing Democratic conversation. The other thing I thought was fascinating about these numbers is the level of economic satisfaction in the swing state of Ohio. If, in fact, Donald Trump wants to turn to John Kasich, who had a decent relationship during the primaries, they never really clashed very much, Kasich would clearly, based on these poll numbers and others, be an asset in the state of Ohio. That struck me as interesting as well. The last thing is, and I encourage our audience to dig into these numbers online if you really want to find how deep the divide is on men and women, Trump runs substantially ahead of Hillary Clinton in all 3 swing states among men, substantially behind her with women. And interestingly, Hillary Clinton is viewed not favorably. They're both viewed very unfavorably, but Clinton, by small margins in all 3 states, is viewed as more honest and trustworthy than Trump. Lots to dig into. One thing I think everyone should remember is this is polls early in the process, early in the formation of a general election conversation, and at the apex of Trump's positive publicity. These polls were taken in the atmosphere of Trump becoming the presumptive Republican nominee, awash in all of that praiseworthy publicity and press coverage. These may, therefore, represent high watermarks for him, or they may not. But they are certainly surveys taken in the most positive environment Trump has had in the last couple of months.
All right, Major Garrett in Washington for us. Major, thanks so much.
Sure.